Welcome to the Bold Book of the Day with Dr. Denise Nicholson, a show that is a central hub and safe space for authors to share their stories. The Bold Book with Dr. Denise begins now.
Hello, welcome to Bold Book of the Day. My name is Dr. Denise Nicholson. I'm the creator of the Bold Book podcast. Today we have interviewing Dr. Macie Smith. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's an honor and a privilege. I can't wait for you to tell us some more about your book and your journey. Tell me a little bit about yourself before I jump into it.
Okay, so I'm a licensed social worker. I've been a licensed social worker now for over 24 years. I'm also a gerontologist, which means I specialize in working with the aging population. I also specialize in the care of those living with Alzheimer's and dementia and their families and caregivers. So I'm a South Carolinian born and bred. I still live here. I travel abroad, but I always come back home. I am a Southern girl through in and throughout. I've been working with seniors now for over 24 years. That's a population that is near and dear to my heart. One of the reasons is because they have so much wisdom, they have so much value, but oftentimes they're undervalued. And so I always like to be an advocate where I need to be an advocate and just really to advance God's kingdom. Because if you're not doing that, then what are you really doing?
Oh my God, you said so much right there. And it's important for us to understand that this lady she's packed with information. So you're going to get it. This is going to be amazing. You wrote a beautiful book. So congratulations on the release of your new book, A Dementia Caregiver Called to Action, The Journey. Tell me what inspired you to write the guidebook for dementia caregivers.
So it's actually the second book. The first book I wrote was a Dementia Caregiver's Guide to Care, Frequently Asked Questions. And so what I noticed in doing my public speaking and my community education events, I would have family caregivers and those who were professional caregivers as well come back to my training sessions over and over again. No matter where I was, they would show up, and I would often say to them, well, I'm going to say the same thing. And then they would say, I know, I just need to apply it to a different situation, or I need to hear it again, or I forgot it and I'm being faced with a new challenge. And so I felt bad that caregivers had to take time out of their day. I mean, they're already doing the most work with their managing the care of their loved one, trying to manage their own care and their family, and trying to work to sustain a normalized sense of being. And so I felt terrible that they had to keep coming back. And so my husband said to me one day, well, just write it down. He is so concrete and so plain thinking until it is a shame. But it was so spot on. He said, well, just write it down. Just write it down for him. So in his mind, he's saying, write it down for him, like on a piece of paper so they can take with them. In my mind, I'm like, write a book. And so that's what inspired me to write the first book. I didn't want it to be long at all, number one, because I can't sit and write. But number one, I can't write at all. I can't understand my handwriting. So typing, I have so much, as you said, I'm packed with so much information. I have so much. And so if I'm typing it, seems like I'm not typing fast enough. Wow. I have a conflict between my mind and my fingers on the keyboard. And so I said, I know it can't be a long book because number one, I can't sit and write that long. I prefer to speak it, right? On the flip side of that, if a caregiver, and the caregivers that I'm targeting, those are the caregivers that are providing 24/7. They may not have in-home care. If they do have in-home care, it's not a lot of hours because it's a cost to that. Or either they're working and just don't have time. So I wanted to get to the meat and potatoes. I didn't want to start off, when I went to school at South Carolina State University in 1999. They don't want to hear all that. They want to know, how do I get my mama to drink water? Because she keeps having UTIs and she won't drink water. So
Straight to the point.
I'm going to tell you who I am, my credentials. Let's get to it. And so after I wrote the first book, then I would have caregivers come to me and say, does this book include what to do when you're diagnosed or when your loved one is diagnosed? Does your book have in there, how to build a team? And I was like, no, not this one. So boom. Well, the next one should
write another one. Okay.
Write another one. And when I say anywhere, I mean, it's no more than 64 pages. And so this book, a Dementia Caregiver Call to Action, whether it's by choice or whether it's by default, you are in that position. And so I take you through the journey, what you should do when you suspect something is happening, what you should do during the diagnostic process, how you can be an advocate and a contributor to that whole process, and then what to do after the diagnosis is confirmed, as confirmation as you can get from a clinician, how you should build that team, what you should say, who you should call. These are the websites that you need to have in your repertoire to be able to refer back to. And so it really is an action plan for caregivers who are caring for someone with any type of dementia, really.
Wow. So what do you hope the most important message that the readers get or the caregivers take away from this? What do you hope that's the most important information that they take away from reading your book?
You just said it twice. Hope.
Hope.
Hope. Because when you lose hope, you lose life.
Amen.
And so when you think about a devastating illness like Alzheimer's disease or progressive type of dementia that's eating away at the person's being, because your brain is your being. And when you're losing parts and pieces of yourself, number one, for the person, that's scary. They're fearful. I don't care what they say out of their mouth.
Yeah.
They may say, "There's nothing wrong with me. I'm perfectly fine. Something's wrong with you. I'm good." In their mind and in their spirit, they've already been experiencing these signs and symptoms 15 years prior to. They may not have noticed it until maybe 5 or 8 years before that, but they know what's happening. But they're not going to let you know, especially in the early stages. They're not going to let you know that they know, because now you're going to start treating them differently. You're going to start trying to take control of their life or take away their independence. And that's what people don't want to lose, is their independence, because they're losing a sense of self. And so I want them to take away that there is hope. People with dementia can live well, and they can live well with the support of their loved ones, but it starts with understanding the disease process. So giving them information, arming them with information to be able to navigate the journey as a partner with the person who's living with dementia, and to know that they both can live well, because there are resources out there. And I don't need them trying to find it, because too much information is just as much as not enough information. And so the book gives them the core pieces of information that they need in order to build that quality journey that they need.
So it's not like drinking water from a hose, No. Okay. Or I get it. So I also heard so many things. Oh my God, this lady came to preach. Okay, guys. So we gotta take notes and get the book. Please get the book, because it sounds like it is packed with information. And one of the things that you said that is so profound is that they themselves know, the patient, the client, the family member, they know that there's a shift, there's a change. I remember when I went on a vacation with one of my aunts, and she said to me, now I had a baby when I was 16 years old, and there was big drama about it in my family because I was 16 years old, and I went to live with this aunt, and she turned to me in the car and said, "So you never had children, huh?" And that, I turned around. I said, "What you mean, Auntie? It's me." And she said, "Oh,
I thought you was such and such."
Yes. And she said, "My mind has been doing this lately."
Wow.
Yes. She caught herself. She realized, and then she said that. And then 4 years later, she was diagnosed. But I remember that car ride. I remember that day. I knew that something was happening, because everybody know my story in the family, so you can't get me mixed up with.
There's no hiding from that.
No hiding. So you are so correct in that the person know what's going on. But can you share any personal anecdotes or experience that you included in the book to illustrate the journey of a dementia caregiver?
Yeah, so my grandma, she actually developed a progressive type of dementia. well into her 80s is when we started seeing the signs and symptoms. And she always felt like someone was stealing her pots. And I often tell that story because that was so real to her. That was so vivid to her. That was an actual fact to her that this thing was happening. And so my dad, who was her primary caregiver, and my sister, and then me at a distance, my sister and I knew how to handle that because I would kind of tell her what to do, what some tips to take. And she already knew just by, being in the midst of my grandmama every day. But my daddy, on the other hand, he wanted to force reality. So he wanted to evoke reality orientation on her. And it never fared well for him. Actually, it caused him to have medical complications or health complications, to whereas he couldn't even go up there as much because he did not have the cognitive capacity to step into her reality. And so my book talks a lot about stepping into their reality and picking your battles.
Yes.
Their reality is the only reality. If you can't come to terms with the fact that their brain is changing and whatever their brain says is real is, if you can't play that part,
yes,
then you might need to limit your actions, right? Or your activity or your engagement. And so I really hone in on the communication and engagement aspect too. In the beginning of the book, when I talk about the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia, and once the diagnosis is confirmed, the engagement piece is everything. Offering that comfort, offering that support, really offering a sense of normalcy. Don't treat them like what they have. Treat them like who they are.
Ooh.
And that's their heart and their soul. And your journey would be a lot. It won't be as heavy. It's going to be a heavy lift either way because you're dealing with a lot of emotions. You're seeing the person who you love, who you've known all your life, appear to fade away right in front of your eyes. And so that is a grieving process. So it is going to be a heavy lift. But when you start to speak to the heart and soul of the person, is not as of a heavy lift because there are going to be moments of joy in that whole journey.
But what about for the caregiver that didn't have that bond with the person that they're taking care of, but they're a family member, or they're seeing this person in the light of their strength when they wrong them? What kind of advice do you have for that person?
That question does come up often, Dr. Nichols, and it's hard, right? Because you're thinking about. So I'll say this, right? So they begin to, the person living with dementia, they begin to revert to previous life's patterns, right? So just say and they can still feel, right?
Yes.
It's almost like, they probably don't remember the role that you play in their life, but they can still feel how they feel about you. And so if there's not a good relationship there, they're going to feel that. Even if they can't express what happened or how it even got to that point.
Feelings, the feelings is there. The muscle remembers, the body remembers. Yes.
Is there. And so they will probably say things that are going to be very hurtful to the person. And that person is going to take it as if they know what they're doing. There's really nothing wrong with them. They're just hateful. They're mean. And that person is going to take it to heart. It's hard. There's no right or wrong answer, and there's no one answer to that. That would lead me to ask a lot of questions. I would ask, number one, why are you the person taking care of that loved one? It may be an only child, and that child didn't have a good relationship with their parent, but they're the caregiver by default. It may be if they're not in a good mental space to manage the care, then that's when they may have to hire help to come in. If they can't afford to hire help to come in and they have to be the one, they're going to absolutely need a social worker or a geriatric care manager to come and help navigate that whole process, because this is a challenge. Because when you don't have a good relationship with someone, you go to therapy, you go to counseling, you go to the pastor to help you through the whole cycle, right?
Right.
But that takes a fully functioning cognitive brain to be able to do that. So when you have someone with dementia, chances are they're not going to benefit fully from any type of therapy session, right? Mm-hmm. So it's almost that person who's providing the care is going to have to go through individual counseling, whether that's pastoral counseling, whether that's through a therapist, but they're going to need to have that whole healing process so that way they can be in the mental state to take care of this person. And that's only if they can't afford to pay for someone to come in
and step in.
Yeah, or other family
members.
The
majority of the care, yeah.
Exactly. You can kind of step in and out and try to do a little care till they piss you off, then you got to go. But you know that they're taken care of. But if you're that one, then you're going to have to go through some healing.
Yes. What are some great suggestions, but what are some other tips from your book that caregivers can use to provide better quality of care for their family or loved ones?
Well, the very first thing I often tell folks, now, there are people who are walking around with a diagnosis of dementia and receiving medications for dementia, but they really don't even have dementia.
Oh, wow.
So I talk about
misdiagnosis.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
A misdiagnosis. A lot of times that comes in when family members and those living with dementia, true or false, don't know what questions to ask the doctor. They have the white coat syndrome. Whatever the doctor says is right. But the doctor doesn't know everything. You and your loved one way better than any doctor does. And so just being able to ask the right questions on the front end to ensure you have an adequate diagnosis. There are treatable causes of dementia. It could be a urinary tract infection. It could be vitamin deficiencies. I had a client whose mom was diagnosed with dementia and she was taking the medications. And so when they came to me, I always go through the beginning. Who diagnosed? What diagnostic tools did they use? Because they have to use several. It's not just one. Is a neurologist on the team? A neurologist has to be on the team because it's a brain condition. It's a neurological condition. And so that specialist has to be a part of that core team, which is what I talk about in the book. Mm-hmm. And so, who did the diagnosis? What tests did they perform? And what type of dementia is it? That's what's going to throw it for a whole loop. What type of dementia is it? Did they rule out treatable causes? So I list the treatable causes that doctors should rule out on the front end. And let me just tell you, the doctors don't go through all those tests. A lot of doctors do not go through all those tests, not because they don't know to go through those tests, but because, I'm going to say it, there are situations where there is discrimination in the healthcare system. There is. Doctors don't take the time to do a full workup because number one, because of the stereotypical factors that go along with being Black and being unhealthy in America. What we know now is that Black people are twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's, but more likely to be diagnosed later on in the disease process because of a variety of factors. A lot of times doctors will associate the changes in the person's behavior and in their health status. They're related with typical chronic illnesses in the Black community, such as high blood pressure or diabetes. And that could be the case, but they don't go through the full workup to determine if this is what it is. And again, the family members don't know enough about it to ask the questions. Typically, when you ask the doctor to do these particular tests, they typically do it. But if you don't ask, then they probably won't do it.
And if you don't know, how are you gonna,
exactly. There are times that they don't take our symptoms that we relay seriously, especially a Black woman. And so they associate it with the stereotypical chronic illnesses, again, in the Black community, while not even considering dementia. Or on the flip side of that, they'll just, okay, if it's someone who's forgetting things and they're over the age of 65, dementia, here's a prescription. But then they didn't rule out any of the treatable causes. And so family members and those who are experiencing symptoms have to be armed with the information. Even if you're not experiencing any symptoms, if you are over the age of 65, you want to grab the book so that way you know what to expect for yourself. Because after 65, Medicare does cover at your annual visit a cognitive assessment. And so you definitely want to get that done when you do your annual appointment.
What other advice do your book offer for navigating the healthcare system and finding the necessary support, because there are resources out there for dementia care, but how do you navigate this, and how do you get the healthcare system to just be a part of the solution and not it sound like a hindrance when you are of certain color?
Again, just being armed with the information. When you
Mm-hmm.
build a team, I show you how to build a team of advocates. And so you have access to the Alzheimer's Association. I give you information about identifying and selecting a geriatric care manager like myself to help you to be your voice box when you can't be, to be your advocate when you're not there, to be boots on the ground, to help you build those resources.
Do you have a database of dementia caregivers that your book provides?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Amen.
so
Okay.
I have a link to where you can go to pull
Yes.
that list. I have a link to where you can go to pull a list of services that you don't even know to ask for. Like,
Yes.
just say, some people don't even know the definition of respite. They don't know what respite is. It
Yes.
is when you take a break from constant care, but because of that term, they've never heard that term respite before. And so you have to break that down. So I break that down in the book. I give you the link to where you can go to look for respite, because now you know what that word means.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can just go to this particular link and type in, I need a break.
I need a break, honey. That's simple. Yes. Type it in. Write that down, guys. You're listening. And I know that this is common, not just in our community, but it's common when you start to age. Dementia is one of the high risk. So write that down, because when you're given constant care, you do get a breakdown of sometimes in your own health. I've seen it with so many of my family members, when their loved one, when their parents are showing or having this dementia, they break down their care. They're not taking care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They're not doing the things that they need to do, even on a regular basis. They're just not getting to take care of themselves because they're so engulfed with managing this issue or this illness with their family. So this is really great advice, but you got to get the book, because there's so much in there and so much to unpack. Your book also described, or it was described as a place for practical steps for caregivers. And I find that it sounds like it's more than just practical steps. It sounds like we got ourselves a manual up in here. Okay.
Yeah. And again, I don't use big words. I don't use large jargon. The only time I would have a word in there that may be a medical term is because I need for you to understand what that medical term is, because it's going to be used throughout. It's going to be thrown out there. And I need for you to understand what they're talking about, because that's another barrier when it comes to the healthcare system. The language that the clinicians use and how they're explaining information to others, whether it's in the Black community, the Hispanic community, the poor community, people who are not affluent or have access to this terminology, they're not breaking it down to whereas people can understand and use the information to do better and to be better. And so when I say practical tips, I really mean practical tips. Basic words, basic terms, lived experiences. So my lived experiences of some of my clients who identify and relate to general situations that many people can identify with. And because that information is easily identifiable, it will be more apt to be adopted and accepted into the person's life. And I really love for my work to be translational and transformative. And because of the practicality of the information, it will be just that.
You have so many years. I saw that you have over 22 years of experience in gerontology. What made you choose gerontology?
Gerontology chose me.
Ooh,
it did, because I didn't even know that was a thing, baby. I did not know that was a thing until just the first job, my first real job that afforded me insurance and allowed me to be able to pay my light bill. That's when you got a real job, right?
You can pay your light bill.
It was with adults who had intellectual and developmental disabilities, and so many of the folks that I work with were over the age of 50. And so I've been in the field for so long, they aged on me. And they began to be diagnosed or misdiagnosed with dementia. And so that's how I became more, I would say more in tune to the whole disease process, because I was responsible for hundreds of older adults who may or may not have been diagnosed properly. And then I needed to train my staff on how to provide care. And so that work was just so rewarding for me. I didn't feel it here. I felt it here. And so it was just as much as a reward for me than it was for them. And, the saying goes, once you find what you love, you never have to work a day in your life. Yeah. And that is so true. And it's like whenever in my mind, so again, in my mind, I'm saying, okay, I got to go see this family. I don't feel like it. I'm tired, but I know I got to go. In my mind, it's my mind talking. Yeah. When I get there, it shifts to the heart. And I'm there for like over an hour. And my husband say, I thought you wasn't going to be there that long. I said, I know. It's like my passion took over.
I can hear it. I can hear it. Oh my God.
And so when you have that type of feeling yourself, and you're supposed to be doing something for somebody else, but because of that work that you're doing, it's blessing your soul. It chose me. And when I found out it was a word for it, I said, I'm in.
Now tell me, what kind of projects do you have planned for the future? Because I can hear the passion, I can hear the love, and I can hear that this is not just it. This, your books are amazing, but I know that I can tell that you have something else in you. What future projects or goals do you have?
Well, I don't have, I can't say, I got a little something in the works, but I really can't say what the future is going to hold or what future projects I have in mind. It's what God has in mind. When I say I am walking by faith, I am walking by faith. But, my goal is to be able to affect lives of others, not necessarily just those who are living with Alzheimer's or in the healthcare space, but just to be a blessing to other people under the sound of my voice, whatever that looks like. I do a lot in the media, and I really appreciate that, because now the information, because it's definitely not about me. I'm not in a position to be popular. I'm in a position to be impactful. Yes. And the media allows me to be able to do that, because you have hundreds of thousands of people who can hear a basic bar. I'm not a rapper, but I have bars, right? They can hear.
She not only came to preach, she came with bars, honey.
Somebody can take a basic bar that I might not feel is instrumental in what I'm saying, but they'll take it and say, when you said this, it changed my whole thought process and how I view taking care of somebody vulnerable. If what I can say or what I can do can change the way in which you positively impact somebody's life who's vulnerable, that's made my day. So I will say my future projects, would based on, God's plan for me, and just stay connected with me on social media. I'm on all social media platforms at Dr. Macie P. Smith, and my website is drmaciesmith.com.
Okay, let me follow you on Instagram. What's your Instagram handle?
It's at Dr. Macie P.
At Dr. Macie P. All right, here we go.
We should definitely connect.
Of course, because I know that I can hear that you are a powerful caregiver and a powerful leader in your community. And I know that, when we have people like you, sometimes we don't know how to connect. So I want to make sure that I connect and I support, and that we can support each other.
Yes, absolutely. That's what it's all about. Doing.
Before you go, if there was one key message that you could leave with the listeners with regard to dementia care, what would it be?
I would say to focus on the person now, not the person who was. Because when you start to focus on the person who was, you lose sight of where they are in their journey now. And it's about the moments.
Okay.
Concentrate on the moments, not the years, not the months, not the days, but the moments. Because it will definitely bless your soul. There are going to be moments of lucidity, and you want to be sure you don't miss out on those.
And where can the listeners purchase your book?
Oh, it's on Amazon.com, and it's also on BarnesandNoble.com. You can just Google Dr. Macie Smith, and the book will pop up.
Excellent. I have 3 questions that I love to ask all of my guests. Can I ask you these questions?
Yes.
Okay. So, these questions I love to ask because, you know, we have such depth about us. And when you go to a podcast, sometimes people don't get to know you, you know, fully. So I like to ask these questions just to get to know you a little bit more. So tell me, what is one statement that you can make to the audience that can make a paradigm shift, that can cause a paradigm shift?
Mm.
Mm.
Oh, gosh, I know.
Take your time, girl. Because you know.
That's a deep question. You know, gosh, I would say really taking yourself and what it is that you want, you know, out of the game plan, and focus on how you can bless somebody else. When you're working on something or working towards something and it's all about self, you may not have as great an impact as you would have had if you would have put someone else's needs in mind. As you're building, as you're shifting, as you're growing, focus on how that shift and that growth can impact the lives of somebody else.
Beautiful. Well said. Now, what's one bold promise that you can share with the audience?
A bold promise.
So as believers, we believe in the promise of, you know, as the word. And so most of the times I think that when we share a promise from you know, what guides us in our life, and if you read the Bible or if you read the Quran, what guides you? What's a promise that has guided you that you can share with the world?
I will say the promise of helping others and not hindering others.
Amen.
If I can't be a blessing to you, I won't be a hindrance for you. So my bold promise is to help others at any cost. And when I find that I'm not that helpmate, then I'm gonna move on out of the way.
Period.
Period.
What's a bold move that you plan to make in the future, Dr. Macie Smith?
Oh my gosh, a bold move.
Yes.
I'm always nervous about stuff, so that's so interesting. That's interesting that you asked me that. Because I feel like if I say it, I'm gonna have to do it.
That's why we put this one in there, because I want to stretch you so that when you do say it, you know you done told thousands of people.
I know.
Yes. Say it.
Oh my gosh.
That's the one. Yep.
Oh, okay. Oh, I hate to do this, but I won't say it.
Yes.
One day, I plan to give a word. And when I say give a word, I mean, I'm going to stand up in somebody's church.
Yes.
And I'm going to leave a word with the people. That's so interesting because I don't know no scriptures. I can't quote nothing. I can't quote the numbers.
Not yet.
I can't. So that's a bold move right there. Number one, I'll stand up in church and say something from down on the floor, but I'm gonna be somebody's pulpit. I'm gonna bring the word and I'm gonna go sit back down.
Please write it down.
Don't let me put a target date on that now. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay, it's just gonna happen. I'm telling you, it's just gonna happen because somebody's gonna hear and be like, "You come to my church. You're gonna come tell my church about this caregiver." Yes, I love it. That is beautiful, and it's gonna happen. Now, where can we find your book? One more time. I know you said Amazon, but
not a problem.
What if
it's on Amazon.com and it's also on BarnesandNoble.com. You could just search my name, Dr. Macie Smith, or you can type in a Dementia Caregiver Call to Action.
You're amazing. You emphasize the importance of specialized care for individuals with dementia, but I also think that you empower us to love our family for where they are now. And that's one of the main messages that I'm taking away today, that we can love our family members for where they are now, not for who they used to be, because when you look at them as who you used to be, you start to sometimes get intimidated, right?
Yeah.
or sometimes feel like this is a burden because you know where they were as a strong person.
Right. Yeah. And it's a shift. It's a mind shift for the caregiver because the person's mind is already shifted.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to figure out how to be okay with the shift.
Be okay with the shift. Oh my God. One more thing before you go. I know that it's hard to navigate the healthcare system. I'm a nurse practitioner hospitalist, and I'm in there, and I can see how difficult it is for me when I have to take a family member or be there for myself. So what advice do you have for us or people who are navigating this and going through the newness of finding out the family member have dementia? What one last advice before you go do you have for us to navigate the healthcare system and the caring of our dementia family member?
Well, you have to have an advocate. I tell everybody, you have to have an advocate. You have to have someone who's going to help you understand the system and navigate the system, because it is cumbersome for no reason at all. There is no justification as to how cumbersome and how complicated the long-term care system is. And so I often tell everybody to connect with the Department on Aging, their area agency on aging, so that way they can connect with an advocate or someone who can help them, guide them through the process.
Okay, tell us the name of your book again, because
it's a Dementia Caregiver Call to Action, the journey.
When I get off this interview, I'm going to write down a few names of people that I want to get your book. Okay.
Yes, that would be great. That'd be a blessing.
Yes, I'm definitely sending it to my cousin. If you're listening, girl, I'm thinking about you right now because I know it's tough. I know what you're going through over there, but I know there's so many people like her that is struggling through this time when they find out that their family, because this is it's common now,
Yeah, it is. And now that it has a name to it and more people are talking about it in various spaces on various platforms like yours. So I thank you for the opportunity. It gives people more reason and more ammunition to name it and to face it, because you can't fix what you don't face. And so we're making it okay for them to face their concerns.
You're amazing. You wrote a whole book.
Oh, well, thank you.
More than once.
More than one time.
A Dementia Caregiver Call to Action, the journey. Go get it. Please. I know this is going to change your life. It's going to give you the resources you need to get the help you need. If you're feeling overwhelmed, this is the book you need. Okay. Yeah. This is the book. It has resources. First of all, just the respite alone, you need it. Sister, this book, we're speaking to you right now. You did not come across this podcast by mistake. It's no coincidence. This book is for you. Go get it. It's going to change your life. It's going to give you the relief you need so that you can love your family member, but still love yourself. Still take care of yourself. And for those who are out there that would love to write a book, just like Dr. Macie Smith did, just send me an email at authordnicholson@gmail.com. I can help you get your book idea out of your head and onto paper so that you can become the published author that you've been dreaming of and make a difference in people's lives. Give them hope and inspiration, just like Dr. Macie Smith did with this book, A Dementia Caregiver Call to Action, the journey.
Thank you for joining us for the Bold Book of the Day with Dr. Denise Nicholson, a central hub and a safe space for authors to share their stories. Follow Dr. Denise on Facebook and Instagram at Denise Nicholson, or go to denisenicholson.com. Remember, no one can share your story better than you.